Shana Tova. The elephant in the room this morning is the state of our nation. But I won't be speaking about it today because I recognize that, as Rabbi Hudson has suggested, in the face of so many anxiety-laden events taking place in our nation, it's wise for us at the start of these holidays to focus on ourselves, to think about our inner lives and how we may remain calm, grounded, and in balance. The chief focus of these high holy days is our spiritual lives. And we won't be able to consider our societal problems well enough unless we attend first to what's happening in our own hearts and souls. So stay tuned on Kol Nidre. I promise you my thoughts about the state of our nation then. Today, I want to speak to you about something more personal, about the changes and transitions we've experienced this past year. These holidays aren't only a reminder of the passage of time, but an opportunity to take stock of the impact those changes and transitions have had upon us. Some of us have had births, B'nai Mitzvah celebrations, conversions, and graduations in our families. Our kids have grown and had transitions of their own, and we parents have had to adjust and, hopefully, to celebrate their new stage of life and our own. Others among us have fallen in and out of love. We've married, separated, and divorced. We've moved across the country. We've left jobs, re-educated ourselves, perhaps taken new positions, or we're preparing to do so. Lots of us have reached significant birthdays. We've struggled with illness, addiction, and abuse. We're feeling the effects of age, whether we be 20 or 90. We've lost loved ones, and we've suffered the debilitating pangs of loneliness. We've let go of destructive relationships, rekindled former friendships, and begun new ones. We've retired, and some of us are thinking about retiring, me included. By the way, this is not my last High Holy Days. Next year is. Some of you thought it was. So of all of these things, did I miss anything? Think about it. The poet describes our journey this way. Wayfarer, the only way is your footsteps, there is no other. Wayfarer, there is no way. You make the way by walking. As you go, you make the way, and stopping to look behind, you see the path that your feet will never travel again. Wayfarer, there is no way, only foam trails to the sea. In the Garden of Eden, after the first man and woman ate from the forbidden fruit, they thought they could hide from their Creator. Of course, God knew where they were all along, but called out anyway, Ayeka, where are you? The question wasn't about Adam's physical location. It was about his emotional and spiritual state. On these high holy days, tradition asks us the same question. Ayeka, where are you? How have you changed this year? What were the transitions through which you endured, suffered, or delighted? Were they painful or joyful? Did you resist or accept them? Have you integrated them, or are you stuck in the past and resisting the change? These are important questions because change isn't easy even when it's necessary. As we ponder Ayeka, we ask not only where we are emotionally and spiritually, but where we need and want to be, what we want to accomplish in the new year, what goals we seek to reach, and in what direction we hope to grow and change. One researcher identified 10 specific strategies worthy of our consideration. As I list them, I invite you to conduct your own cheshbon hanefesh, your own self-assessment. Try and measure yourself relative to each of the 10. 1, being able to orient our thinking towards the future and not the past. 2, maintaining a hopeful perspective. 3, turning lemons into lemonade. 4, reacting well to change, disease, and conflict. 5, reinventing ourselves. 6, practicing forgiveness. 7, feeling and expressing gratitude. 8, letting go of our egos, self-centeredness, and overly inflated sense of self-importance. 9, demonstrating for the young how not to fear death. And 10, finding a rationale for living well even in times of loss, illness, and despair. This list constitutes what I call a strategic plan for a meaningful life. Imagine successfully adopting and applying them whenever we find ourselves in a transition, which is most of the time. If we're successful, even with some, I believe we'll be happier and better. Our greatest initial challenge is to find the time necessary to step away from the concerns that preoccupy us on a daily basis, because if we're only that which preoccupies us, we're less than what we could and ought to be. We need skills to effectively engage with the 10 strategies, skills to help us arrive at a place where we're thinking and acting in consort with each of the 10. This morning, I want to speak with you about one set of skills that I know can help us embrace the 10 strategies with the greater goal of growing in 5 core Jewish virtues: humility, gratitude, generosity, joyfulness, and calm equanimity. 10 strategies, 5 virtues, one set of skills. I know that's a lot to consider and remember, but bear with me. I'll return to them again. The skill I want to consider is mindfulness meditation. How many of you actually meditate? How many of you have meditated? How many of you have never meditated and don't plan on meditating? I ask that because I begin by acknowledging that meditation isn't necessarily for everyone. But there are other skills that can help us fulfill the 10 strategies and promote those 5 Jewish virtues. They include prayer, what we're doing right now, singing nigonim, as we've done this morning. Nigonim are melodies without words. It's a Hasidic practice. Doing mitzvot, commandments, and acts of gemilut chasadim, loving kindness. Practicing yoga, tai chi, the martial arts, exercising, dancing, creating art, traveling, learning Torah, and studying Musar literature. Musar, by the way, for those of you unfamiliar with it, is a genre of Jewish literature that describes the path towards fostering peace of mind, humility, tolerance, thoughtful consideration of others, self-examination, and purity of mind. Now, none of these alone is adequate for any one person because we're all a variety of spiritual types. I've chosen to speak to you specifically about mindfulness meditation today because I believe that when it's done as it ought to be done with intention and regularity, we can develop the art of listening beyond the noises of our lives, and we can begin to change within. Those changes help to actualize the 10 strategies and promote the 5 core Jewish virtues. Now, a bit of personal meditation history, just so you know where I'm coming from. One summer, 23 years ago, my family and I spent a week at the beach. And each morning, awakening before everyone else, as I have always done, I walked out onto the sand, sat quietly on a bench on a bluff overlooking the surf a short distance from the water's edge. I felt the cool breeze on my face, smelled the moist salt air, watched the gulls and pelicans dive for fish and the small shorebirds scamper for crabs. And I listened to the waves break and roll across the wet sand. The setting calmed me, and even today when thinking about it and recalling it, I find myself transported back into that wonderful, calm, and mindful place. It was there on that bluff that I read a book called Wherever You Go, There You Are. How many of you are familiar with it? Good. It's by Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, a physician then serving at Boston, Massachusetts General Hospital, where he used meditation techniques to help his heart patients reduce their stress levels. Dr. Kabat-Zinn's book opened me through meditation to an experience of myself I'd not known before. Meditation, he wrote, is paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally, for the purpose of nurturing greater awareness, clarity, and acceptance of present moment reality. How many of us can do that? After that summer, I sought out a teacher of Jewish meditation who explained to me that, as opposed to Buddhist meditation, the goal of which is to empty the mind and transcend suffering, Jewish meditation doesn't stop our thoughts, nor empty our minds, nor rid ourselves of emotion. We aren't blank slates. Our hearts and minds are filled with feelings and thoughts all the time, which perhaps is why we Jews are always obsessing about something. We need moments of relief from all of it without denying any of it. Jewish meditation's goal is to enable us to step back and away from our thoughts and emotions and stand as if from a distance to witness them coming and going without our having to engage them or evaluate, categorize, analyze, or judge. If we're able to do that regularly, we'll be better able to reach a state of equanimity and calm. Calmness, the late 19th century essayist William George Jordan explained, is singleness of purpose, absolute confidence, and conscious power, ready to be focused in an instant to meet any crisis. People who are meditatively and mindfully calm are intensely interested in all that concerns the welfare of humanity. Their calmness is but a holy of holies into which they can retire from the world to get strength to live in the world. When we're calm, we're fully in the moment and able to flow easily with anything and everything that occurs. Mindfulness practice offers much more than even this. Mindfulness is rooted in Judaism since antiquity. Recall Moses' first revelation in Midian while tending his father-in-law Jethro's flocks. One day he pursued a lost lamb and came upon a burning bush that wasn't aflame or that wasn't consumed by the flames. Moses thought, "Let me pray, turn aside, that I might see this great sight, why the bush does not burn up." And the Creator saw that he had turned aside to see. And God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, "Moses, Moses." And he said, "Hineni, here I am." The sight opened Moses to the experience of wonder, amazement, and awe, and inspired in him an expansive awareness of God and the unity of all things. He couldn't have experienced any of this without becoming mindfully calm. Insight always comes in the quiet moments, when we have time to breathe and to think, and when we step away from the noise. Moses easily could have put out the fire or walked away, but he didn't, because he was graced with one virtue that merited Moses to be chosen as God's first, most intimate, and most cherished prophet, one of the 5 core virtues, humility. Now, Moses was a very humble man, more humble than anyone else on the face of the earth, Torah tells us. Moses' humility opened him to hear God's voice, to merge his spirit with the divine will, and as God's agent and holy vessel to free the Israelite slaves. At first, however, Moses resisted God's call. All the prophets initially resisted. But as the most humble of any human ever to walk the earth, Moses sublimated his ego to the divine self. Jewish meditation, in Hebrew called hitbonenut, enables the meditator to cultivate inwardness, to stand humbly, to transcend the ego and the limits of the physical, and to awaken an awareness of the godliness of a higher soul called neshama. Rabbi Abraham Heschel has written eloquently of what occurs in our awareness once we non-prophets transcend our egos. He said, awareness of the divine begins with wonder. It is the result of what we do with our higher incomprehension. We may face the mystery at every turn, in a grain of sand, in an atom, as well as in stellar space. Everything holds the great secret, for it is the inescapable situation of all being to be involved in the infinite mystery. We may continue to disregard the mystery, but we can neither deny it nor escape it. There's another Jewish meditation practice that helps us step away from but not deny our thoughts and emotions. This one is attributed to the great mystic sage Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav. In Hebrew, it's called, similar to hitbonenut, but this one is hitbodedut, and it involves speaking aloud to God directly from our hearts. Rabbi Nachman said that such conversations are best done alone at night or in the early morning hours when the world is asleep and we're faced with the least distractions. The practice can be done also during the day in any place that's quiet and we're alone, at home, in a garden, at the seashore, on a mountain, and even when we're in our cars sitting at traffic stops, which I sometimes do to calm myself. Rabbi Nachman taught that his disciples should pour out aloud through screaming and wailing at times their worries, desires, and needs, their anger and fears, their sorrows, frustrations, and their joys. Basically, to clear out for a few moments everything weighing heavily upon our hearts and minds so we can open our spiritual antenna and intuit God's presence unencumbered by the distracting thoughts and feelings that fill our minds and hearts so often. Practicing hitbodedut aloneness meditation can encompass virtually everything in our lives, from the simplest daily activities, our health concerns, and the well-being of our loved ones, raising our children and letting them go, caring for the elderly, tending to our livelihood and business, and addressing our spiritual concerns. The goal of hitbodedut aloneness meditation is to unburden ourselves and to slow down enough to become more mindful and present, more humble and grateful, more generous, joyful, and calm, the 5 Jewish virtues. In other words, to nurture them. Let's take a mindful moment now. Now, I invite you to sit comfortably with your feet resting easily on the carpet, and I ask you to close your eyes. It'll help so that you won't be distracted by any visuals. Now take a breath. Inhale and exhale deeply and fully. As you continue to breathe and be aware of your breathing, relax your shoulders and arms and become aware of your whole body from your head to your toes. Take a tour of your body. Watch your breath as it enters you and leaves you. see and feel the cool air coming in through your nostrils and the warm air departing through your mouth. Wiggle your toes. And please keep your eyes closed for a few more moments. There's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what you are pursuing. You have to explain about the thread. It is hard for others to see. While you hold it, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen, people get hurt or die, and you suffer and get old. Nothing you do can stop time's unfolding. You don't ever let go of the thread. And now open your eyes and return to us here in the sanctuary. The thread is our authentic innermost voice, our deepest self, our soul. When we calm our minds and hearts, we become more aware of the thread. The thread brings us into an awareness of the larger reality we inhabit. The thread is pure and impervious to change. It grounds us through transition. It connects us to who we really are. It's been there since we were very young. It links us to others, to family and friends, to strangers, to humanity, to nature, to Torah, to God. Our multiple relationships are interconnected and interrelated and interdependent, and they're linked one to another by that thread, the soul. The poet reminds us never to let go of the thread, because it's that thread that keeps us from getting lost, from forgetting who we are, especially as we grow, change, and experience the inevitable life transitions. The question God asked the first human being in the garden, Ayeka, where are you, is a question about the state of the soul, about who we really are and why we're alive. The 10 strategies are means to the fulfillment of our greater purpose in life. And I want to list them once again, and this time hear them and the possibilities there are for you to embrace them as life strategies leading to the deepening of the 5 core Jewish virtues: humility, gratitude, generosity, joyfulness, and calm equanimity. The 10 are, and I'll read them slowly. 1, orienting ourselves towards the future and not the past. 2, maintaining a hopeful perspective always. 3, turning lemons into lemonade. 4, reacting well to change, disease, and conflict. 5, reinventing ourselves. 6, practicing forgiveness. 7, feeling and expressing gratitude. 8, letting go of our egos, self-centeredness, and overly inflated sense of self-importance. 9, if we're old, demonstrating for the young how not to fear death. And 10, finding a rationale for living well, even in times of loss and despair. Wayfarer, the only way is your footsteps, there is no other. Wayfarer, there is no way. You make the way by walking. As you go, you make the way, and stopping to look behind, you see the path that your feet will never travel again. Wayfarer, there is no way, only foam trails to the sea. We have each of us experienced transitions this past year, and will experience more in the year to come. Change is what makes our lives dynamic. Change is inevitable. We can resist, but we can't deny, and the healthiest way forward is to embrace them, to suffer through them, or to take delight in them. This High Holy Day season is our opportunity to think about these changes more deeply and to do what we need to do. Our lives, our songs, we may not always be able to hear, but the music is always playing, and the thread is always weaving, and the spirit is always connecting, and the heart is always beating, and our lives are always changing. We're here, every one of us, to give and to love, to live humbly and gratefully, generously, joyfully, and with calm equanimity. May our journeys be rich and sustaining. L'shana tova tikatevu umetuka. May you have a good, sweet year, and may you be inscribed, each one of us, in the book of life.